Oh, I love Robin Banks. Yes, I love Robin Banks. You tell her things. Oh, honey, for me. Well, we left Argentina. We had Alaska in our eyes.
Michael Hurley is an American folk singer-songwriter and musician who was part of the Greenwich Village folk scene in the 1960s and 70s, and he's also a cartoonist and painter. The Unholy Modal Rounders were an American folk band considered at times to be underground folk or freak folk. They were started by Peter Stampfel and Steve Weber in 1963 and gained a number of members at various times, and they lasted until 2003. Jeffrey Frederick was an American singer, musician and songwriter and considered to be one of the precursors to alternative country. He worked with a band called the Clamtones a lot. His career stretched from the 1960s to the 90s, and he died in 1997. Hi, my name is Dan. So this is an album of, I believe, underground folk, certainly folk is how it's been described, by a bunch of people in the who were in the Greenwich Village folk scene at the time. So this is credited to Michael Hurley, the Unholy Modal Rounders, which is a subset of the Holy Modal Rounders, and Jeffrey Frederick and the Clamtones. And you might think that what's going to happen here is that you have songs by each of these acts, but actually it's much more of a melting pot than that. You've got people playing with other people. So it's a mixture of a group of musicians for what I understand was actually a fairly fluid scene anyway in Greenwich Village. Most of the songs are sung by one of Peter Frederick, Michael Hurley, who are the two named people here, or Peter Stampfel of the Holy Modal Rounders. And apart from one, which is by one other guy whose name I haven't written down. And it ranges from kind of slow fiddle-centered folk to more country folk. There's a lot of folk instruments in here, like fiddle, mandolin, but then there's electric guitars and, occasional things like banjo and mandola. So I'm just going to chuck that in, show off a little bit of knowledge. You've probably heard of a mandolin. So a mandolin is like a fretted version of a violin. That you play more like a guitar, and a mandola is tuned differently because it's tuned like a viola. So there is for violin there's mandolin, for viola there's mandola, and there's actually for cello there's mandocello as well. I would kind of generally describe this or use the term Americana, but it's less. Kind of a different flavour of Americana. It's definitely got heavy folk elements in here, but there's also quite a strong country element. You could describe bits of it as kind of verging on bluegrass, maybe. In my head, it's all a bit kind of fluid, these descriptions anyway. So apparently this is underground folk. It's possibly connected with things like underground comics, like the Fabulous Freak Brothers, and I guess the cover art emphasises the idea. So of the three singers that we've got, Peter, what was his name, Fredericks, is very country sounding and is therefore the least favourite of mine. Michael Hurley is less so, and Peter Stampfel sounds odd. It sounds like he's trying to sing in a comic manner. I don't know if it's just his voice or if it's put on, but I was trying to work out what he reminded me of, and he reminds me of Kermit the Frog from the Muppets. I guess he probably predates Kermit the Frog. I kind of wonder, is so strong a similarity in my head that I wonder if Frank Oz, who voiced Kermit the Frog to start off with, had heard Peter Stampfel and based Kermit the Frog's voice on him. But I don't know. Anyway, the songs have quite a strong sense of humour. Some of them are about trivial things, some of them about relationships, some of them about, I'm not quite sure what you call this sense of humour, but there's one called Robbing Banks. So it's about, it's about various things, but it is about robbing banks, and it's about being an outlaw. And there's one called Jackknife, which is based on somebody's encounter with a woman where they've cut off their ear, and it's basically get your ear off the floor. It's a weird, maybe slightly dark sense of humour at times. It's definitely kind of odd at times, but it's got a kind of whimsy to the whole thing. It's nicely recorded and played. So there is a connection here with the band The Fug. Apparently, they were also part of the same scene, and there may be some members in common between them. And I did review a Fugs album previously, and I didn't like it because of the quality of the recording quite strongly. So this is definitely better recorded, I would say. And it was, there's some really good playing in here, as there often is in this kind of folky stuff. So I enjoyed it. Mostly, but occasionally it did trigger my anti-country prejudice. So I do have a prejudice against country. Sometimes things can subvert that and get past it, but there was just occasionally it was a bit too strongly country. Okay, so that's what I think. I'd love to know what you think. It is a bit of a curiosity, this album. I think it's more likely that if you're in America, you've come across this. I certainly hadn't come across it before in the UK. I'd love to know what you think. And that's it from me for now.
There's a little dance that I would like to do with you. It'll be your favorite before the dance is through. Kinda like the clog, kinda like the bop. When you do the country bump, you never want to stop. Do it in the bar.